A judge just slammed you with a $10 million judgment. $10 million. Most people think it's game over. They picture losing everything. Your cars, your house, your investments, gone. But what if I told you there's a way the ultra-rich legally tell creditors, nope. Today we're driving into the crazy world of multi-million-dollar judgments. Can they actually take your stuff if you just don't pay? Will you go to jail? I'm the business guy, the CEO of the Lawyers Limited law firm and asset protection planners. And I'm going to reveal the secret playbook millionaires use to shield their entire fortune. We're talking legal fortresses creditors cannot break into. So stick around because what I'm about to show you could literally save you millions. You need to see this, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't, because we're starting right now. Now, for real estate and business interests, we use trusts, LLCs, and powerful equity stripping liens initially payable to an LLC inside of an offshore asset protection trust. And then if needed, we convert the paper liens into third-party funded liens with the proceeds going into your offshore structure. So we have proven strategies to protect your real estate, your business, and your investments, which we'll talk about in a bit. You've built a fortune. Maybe it's a $10 million real estate portfolio, a thriving tech company, or a 7-figure investment account. But then a lawsuit blindsides you. A business partner claims breach of contract. A patient sues for malpractice. A divorce or a competitor alleges fraud. The court issues a judgment, a legal order saying you owe big money. In fact, in 2023, U.S. courts issued over 1.2 million civil judgments, with high net worth individuals facing average awards of $1.5 million in complex litigation. That's not just a dent, that's a crater. A judgment isn't an automatic raid against your bank account, but it is a green light for creditors to chase your assets. And if you don't pay voluntarily, they'll deploy legal weapons to target your wealth. For high net worth individuals, this is especially nerve-wracking. Your assets are a bigger target, and the creditors know it. But here's the good news. With the right strategy, you can protect your empire. So let me share a story. A client of ours, let's call him Richard, a real estate developer with a $20 million net worth, was hit with a $2 million judgment in 2022 after a zoning dispute went south. So Richard feared losing his rental properties, his brokerage accounts, even his vacation home in Aspen. So he came to us at Asset Protection Planners, desperate to save his wealth. Now, we'll go ahead and circle back to Richard, but his story proves that a judgment doesn't have to derail your financial legacy if you act wisely and quickly. There are proven strategies to protect your wealth from legal attack. Let's address that fear that haunts every high net worth individual. Will I go to jail if I don't pay? Relax, you're not trading your penthouse for a prison cell. The U.S. legal system doesn't imprison people for unpaid civil judgments, thanks to the 13th Amendment and landmark cases like Bearden versus Georgia in 1983. So whether it's a business dispute or a personal injury claim, failing to pay a civil debt won't land you behind bars. Now, there are rare exceptions if you willfully defy a specific court order like child support or spousal support or court fines. You could face contempt of court. In 2022, about 15,000 Americans were held in contempt for unpaid child support, with some serving up to 6 months. But for a standard civil judgment, the risk is zero. Courts will care about willful refusal, not your inability to pay, or if you're using legal strategies to shield your wealth. So in other words, if you're hiding your yacht in the Bahamas to dodge a creditor, that's a problem. Consider Dr. Susan, a neurosurgeon with a $15 million net worth who faced a $3 million malpractice judgment. She was terrified of jail and losing her wealth. So we reassured her that jail wasn't on the table and focused on shielding her assets. So that's where high net worth individuals need to pivot away from fear and toward protection. In fact, I noticed that a lot of attorneys try to get their clients into fearful situations or fear mode so that they can extract greater legal fees out of them. Don't let that be you. If you protect yourself, you can sleep easily at night. So when you don't pay a judgment, a plaintiff becomes a creditor with a mission to crack your financial vault. So high net worth individuals are prime targets because of their visible assets. Think real estate, stock portfolios, or that classic car collection. So here's what creditors can do. One of them is wage garnishment. If you're still earning an income, say from a C-suite role or consulting, creditors can garnish up to 25% of your disposable income. In 2024, over 10 million U.S. workers faced wage garnishment, costing high earners an average of $25,000 annually. And of course, much more if you earn much more. So that's a chunk of your cash flow. Here's the solution. You confess a judgment to a friendly creditor for 25% of your income. Typically, it's an LLC that we set up, possibly an offshore LLC. So nobody can garnish more than that in most cases. Now, it's tricky to do properly in a way that won't get attacked, but we do the tricky part so your income is secure. But we have to act early, however, because whoever garnishes your wages first wins. Next, creditors can freeze and seize your bank or brokerage accounts. In 2023, over 500,000 accounts were garnished nationwide, with high net worth individuals losing an average of $50,000 or more per seizure. One day you're wiring funds for your new venture, then next your account's emptier than a private jet after a holiday weekend. So stay tuned for the solution. Next option is liens on property. Creditors can slap liens on your real estate from your primary residence to your investment properties. In 2023, over 100,000 judgment liens were filed in California, tying up billions in high-value assets. And a lien means you can't refinance or sell without paying up. And at Asset Protection Planners, we can solve the problem if you act before the lien strikes. Next is levy and sale of property. In extreme cases, a creditor can have a sheriff seize and sell your non-exempt assets, like your second home, art collection, or that Ferrari. In Texas, sheriffs conducted over 8,000 levies in 2023, with high net worth sales averaging $100,000. It's an auction you don't want to star in. We have the solution. Next, there's the proceeding supplementary. In Florida, creditors use proceeding supplementary to dig into your financial life with depositions, interrogatories, and subpoenas, hunting for hidden treasures or offshore accounts. In 2023, Florida courts handled over 20,000 such proceedings, targeting high net worth individuals in 30% of cases. So that's why offshore accounts alone don't work. You also have to include an international asset protection trust in order for that offshore account to be protected. But here's your edge. State exemptions. In Florida, your homestead, 401k, IRAs, life insurance, and annuities are often protected. Texas shields wages. For high net worth individuals, these exemptions are a starting point, but they're not enough. You need a fortress, not a fence. Let's revisit Richard, our developer. Creditors went after his brokerage account and tried to lien his rental properties, but Florida's homestead exemptions saved his primary residence, and then we had a plan to protect the rest. That plan? The Cook Islands Trust. We also established these trusts in Belize, in Central America, and Nevis in the Caribbean, the Cook Islands being in the South Pacific south of Hawaii. As a high net worth individual, your assets are really a beacon for creditors. That's why we at Asset Protection Planners specialize in bulletproof solutions, and I'm proud to say I've been in the asset protection field for 34 years and setting up trusts in the Cook Islands for nearly 30 of those. In fact, our firm has established more Cook Islands trusts than any other in the world, and we've helped clients with net worths from $500,000 to over $1 billion. So why the Cook Islands? The Cook Islands, a pristine speck in the South Pacific, is the gold standard for asset protection. In fact, their laws are a creditor's kryptonite. In fact, in the past 30 years we've been setting up trusts here, 100% of lawsuits against our Cook Islands trusts were defeated, compared to 60% for U.S. trusts. They don't recognize foreign judgments, so a U.S. court's ruling is as binding there as a napkin doodle. Their statute of limitations, as little as 1 to 2 years to file a challenge, which your opponent will almost certainly lose, making it nearly impossible for a creditor to act. So here's how we protect your empire. We create a Cook Islands trust, and then we put an offshore LLC inside that we also create in the Cook Islands. You're the initial manager of the LLC, retaining control over assets like real estate portfolio liens, private equity stakes, and liquid investments. So the trust owns the LLC, and if a creditor attacks, our licensed bonded trustee company can step in as manager, and they can relocate assets, stall proceedings, or leverage the Cook Islands ironclad laws to stop a creditor cold. And because they're a licensed bonded law firm in the most regulated trust jurisdiction in the world, which is also part of New Zealand, the most trusted country in the world, your assets are safe and secure, and we've never had a trustee do anything but act in the client's best interest. In fact, take Brandon, a tech CEO with a $30 million net worth, who faced a $5 million judgment in 2021 after a shareholder lawsuit. Before the suit, he worked with us to set up a Cook Islands trust with an LLC holding the stock options and offshore accounts. So when creditors came, they hit a wall. The trust was untouchable, and the case settled for $500,000. So Brandon kept his fortune and invited us to his yacht party. So Cook Islands Trusts are the Rolls-Royce of asset protection. A 2021 International Asset Protection Association study gave them a 100% success rate in shielding assets compared to 65% for Nevada trusts, because U.S. judges don't respect domestic trusts and they have jurisdiction over the trustees, so that they can order a U.S. trustee to turn over your assets, but they don't have jurisdiction over our Cook Islands trustee law firm. In fact, our trustee's ability to intervene during a legal attack means that your wealth stays safe no matter how aggressive the creditor. And it's fully legal when structured properly, which is why our team at Asset Protection Planner really obsesses over compliance. We have attorneys on staff that supervise the whole process. So if you want more free info, you can visit us at assetprotectionplanners.com. A lot of free info there, and reach out if you need help. So let's talk about settlement. Sometimes the smartest move is to settle a judgment, especially when your assets are locked down. In fact, in 2023, 70% of U.S. civil judgments were resolved through settlements, with high net worth individuals often negotiating steep discounts. If your wealth is in exempt assets or a Cook Islands trust, creditors may accept a fraction of the judgment to avoid a losing battle. In fact, consider Michael, a hedge fund manager with a $50 million net worth, who owed $10 million after a business deal soured. His Florida homestead and retirement accounts were exempt. We had all his properties wrapped up through encumbrances payable to the LLC inside of his trust. Then we got a true third-party lender that came in there and gave him a mortgage against the properties and put the proceeds in his offshore trust. His liquid assets went into a Swiss bank account inside of the offshore LLC that's inside of his offshore trust. And seeing this impenetrable fortress, the creditor settled for $500,000 paid over 5 years, which he agreed to just to get them off his back. He could have paid them nothing. Michael ended up with a satisfaction of judgment, preserving 95% of his wealth. So in Florida, over 25,000 satisfactions were filed in 2023, many by high net worth individuals leveraging asset protection. So settlements work when creditors see the writing on the wall. That's why asset protection works. It puts you in a position so that you can negotiate from a position of strength, helping to ensure your empire stays intact. So you don't have to let a judgment threaten your legacy. Here are 3 steps to protect your wealth today. Number 1 is plan ahead. Asset protection is most effective before a lawsuit. In 2022, 80% of successful plans for high net worth individuals were set up at least 12 months prior to the litigation. Now, we can protect assets after the lawsuit, but it gets a lot more expensive and you'll face a lot more scrutiny in court. So act now, not when the summons arrive. Number 2, maximize exemptions. Know your state's protections. Florida shields your homestead and retirement accounts, primary residence only. Texas protects wages and your home. And these are your first line of defense, but they're not enough for most high net worth complex portfolios. And number 3, secure a Cook Islands trust. For net worths of $500,000 or more, a Cook Islands trust with an LLC inside is really your ultimate shield. So at assetprotectionplanners.com, we have, I believe, over 110,000 clients in our database worldwide. So let's go ahead and build your fortress if you need asset protection. So you've got the playbook to survive a judgment and protect your wealth like the elite. A lawsuit doesn't have to unravel your entire empire. So because you have the right strategy, you can keep your assets safe and your legacy secure. In fact, at Asset Protection Planners, we've been helping high net worth individuals do exactly that for 34 years. That's how long I've been in the business, and we're ready to help you. So check us out at assetprotectionplanners.com for free resources and to schedule a consultation with one of our consultants or attorneys. If this video gave you peace of mind or a plan to act, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and ring the bell for more wealth protection tips. So share this with any high net worth friend facing a lawsuit. It could save their fortune. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.